There's a lot of pressure for artists. I don't know if it's just the pottery world, but I imagine it's all artists to have a voice, to have their style.
Yeah,
And I feel like, well, that's necessary because if you don't, then you are essentially just copying things you've seen, which is
exactly.
fine. It's part of the process, but that's not your voice or that's not what you're going to sell or who you're going to become. It's just a step. And I feel like the only way to get there is time.
Lisa and David, it's so great to meet you here on Zoom.
It is nice to meet you
Yes.
too.
I absolutely love your pottery.
Oh, thank you.
And this is why I wanted to talk to you, because it's so beautiful and you make these beautiful videos. And it's really it's so it's sort of you wish you can do it. This carving that you do is so wonderful.
Yes,
It's a bit therapeutic to watch you.
it's a very satisfying pattern.
Yeah,
Yes.
I can imagine. And by doing it also, is it a bit sort of how can I say? Is it sort of relaxing to do it?
Meditative, yes, relaxing.
Meditate. Yeah.
Yes,
Cathartic, but she makes it look easy, and that's the difference. So
Oh,
we get a lot
okay.
of people saying, "Oh, I'd love to do pottery," and the way you throw and the way you carve is just
Yeah.
beautiful and relaxing. And that my best analogy is it's like watching someone play a violin beautifully. And they say, "Oh, I just like to pick one of those up and do that too." And it's like, she's practiced a little bit. It's a lot harder than it looks. More
Yeah.
like playing an instrument than doodling.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to say that it's probably like the same thing. You have to do it over and over again,
Yeah.
and to get that feel and how to do it. So, but you work together as a team.
We do, for better or for worse. Sometimes we work, better as a team. Sometimes we don't. Yeah.
Yep.
Today's the first official day of high stakes working together as a team, actually. In fact,
Yeah.
yesterday was my last normal day of work. So at an office job. And so
Today is our
amazing.
today is the golden day.
I'm so happy that I get to talk to you then first.
Well, I'm thrilled to.
On this occasion. Yeah.
Yeah.
But this, Dave, this must have been a big step to take.
Mm-hmm. It is, yeah. It's been a long time coming.
Okay. So you've been involved in the business, or tell me what is your role then, Dave, in the business?
Well, I would say cheerleader, but I don't do a very good job of that usually. Usually I'm the brag. No, we both, wanted to get into pottery, love pottery, started to dabble in it together. I still throw with very, very infrequently right now, but today I'm hoping to jump in there, throw on the pottery wheel. But I've been more of the support crew for the last 9 years.
And by support, business license, tax, website design, getting our e-commerce website up and running, shipping, a lot of glazing. He makes it sound like he doesn't do very much. He does a lot.
But I'm sitting there at our booth at at a show, an art show or something like that, and it was like, "Oh, which piece did you make?" And I'm like, "Well, but I kind of helped. I probably glazed some of these, but it's my wife. It's my wife.
But why is it that? Yeah, but I cannot tell you how many artists tell me this one thing, and that is, I wish there was somebody to take that part of the job away from me, so that I can just focus on the art and on what I'm doing. So I can say that it's such an important part, because otherwise, Lisa, you won't be able to do it in this way. So you can absolutely relax and think about what you're doing, what you're making, and the creative process is then all yours.
Yes. Yeah. Very much so. And we have 5 children. We have 5 girls.
Okay. You're busy.
Yes. And we homeschool. So if I didn't have him, I wouldn't be making anything. I wouldn't have the time. one thing he also did was he converted our garage into a studio. So it's a full working, completely functional studio. And that's something that without his support, I wasn't going to go do plumbing in the garage in order to get running water. And that's huge. That's huge.
But then also, Dave, that you understand what she needs because you also know about what she's doing. So you know all the processes, and although you're not probably making a lot, but you understand.
Yeah, what I don't have are the chops yet, because we've defaulted with a busy life to, we got to get pottery made. You know what? You can make it 4 times faster than I can. You just go and do it. And that makes her better. And that makes me, from a skill standpoint, fall behind, lag behind. I am excited now with more time to invest in it, to get more in, get my hands in the clay more, and I can't wait till the day where she gives it the stamp of approval that it's Dault Pottery ready, so that we can,
No, but but you must bring also the technical things with, because I can just imagine. I spoke to a potter once, and when he started talking about because we said, that it's a form of art where you actually incorporate math, science, and art. It's one of those things where you have to think about the heating and the clay and all of that, and that's all the science. And I would think and if it was me, I would have loved someone to do that technical side. That's
that's where she's like, I'd just like to make the clay. I wanted to be an engineer growing up. That was my thought, that I was going to engineer. And so math and science, that I gravitated towards those. And I've gotten so many different ways to do engineering. Our first pottery wheel, we couldn't find one. There were no pottery supply stores near us. We couldn't find one used because there wasn't a big pottery scene. Just in the South where we were living in Alabama. We were doing youth ministry, making pennies, kind of thing, loving it. So we weren't going to order a brand new wheel, and have it shipped to us. So our first pottery wheel was a treadmill that I tore apart and used the motor in to create a pottery wheel. And it was amazing. It was as pottery wheels go, it was horrible, but it worked. And our whole first show was stuff that we threw on a pottery wheel treadmill.
On a treadmill.
But
isn't that amazing? But I love that. I love how
it forces you to be creative. Exactly. And in pottery, like a lot of small business, you are wearing a lot of hats. And so,
But you know what? That type of thinking, because I always said to my children, I grew up in the 60s, and that's what we did. If you wanted something and it wasn't available, then you just try and figure it out and make it,
Yeah.
And I love that. I think this is, it's amazing when you do something like that.
We found,
go
ahead.
Now carry on.
We found that being small business or trying to be small business owners is just learning how to solve problems, because we can make a product, but how do you sell a product? And how do you make the product? And there's all the things that pop up when you try to do this. It's not so easy to just go out in the garage and make something, because there's all these steps to get to that place. And he is really good at problem solving for us. So.
Well, when you started, we at this, we're talking about the pottery now, but there must be, what was the first idea to do this? When you started doing pottery, did you think, okay, I want to start doing pottery and sell and start a business with it?
Not at all. I went to college for art. I was an art major, and I took one ceramics course, and I was horrible. And I was like, well, that's fun. I can do other things, but I won't be doing pottery. He had dabbled in it in high school and really loved it.
High school art class, we had some pottery wheels, and with a little bit of instruction from a great art teacher in high school, kind of dabbled away and was like, oh, this is fun. I like it, So
he loved it. I didn't love it, but I was into sculpture. I did a lot more sculptural things, portraits of people and things like that. fast forward, graduating college, getting married. We had 2 babies quickly after we getting married, and I was home alone a lot, and I might have been going kind of crazy. So David was like, you need to be making art. You need to have an outlet. So he found a kiln on Craigslist, and he bought that. And I think he bought 50 pounds of clay on Amazon.
Or maybe 25 pounds of
Or
clay.
something. It was on
So
Amazon.
We did not find a way to get clay. I mean, the closest pottery supply store was probably
Atlanta.
4 hours away, you know. So I ordered early Amazon before they were what they are now. Clay,
okay.
You know.
So very expensive. And I started sculpting again, and I was sculpting a bust of him and of the girls, and I was trying to get into sculpture, but that's not where I was in life anymore. I didn't have the patience to sit down and sculpt. And we both were more thinking, you know, if I'm going to invest in this, we really wanted to do something functional. Mm-hmm. So we started hand building dishes, and even that didn't feel satisfying. And probably because we weren't very good at it, but because it just didn't fill the itch that we were, you know, that we had for creating. And that's when he went out in the garage one afternoon and he's like, I've got an idea. And that's when he turned the treadmill into a pottery wheel. And it was a very, it was a very bad wheel, but it was a wheel.
It turned in a circle.
It turned in a circle. And we decided that if we could be serious for 6 months and do a show, that we would invest in a pottery wheel. Because so it wasn't just like, it was intentional. It wasn't just like, oh, we'll do it if we feel like it. It was, if we can prove to ourselves that we can persevere, you know, even with a bad pottery wheel, then we'll invest. And after that first show, we made enough money to buy a wheel, and we found one on Craigslist, a used wheel, and picked that up. And that's the wheel we've been using for nine years. Yeah, almost 9 years. Yeah. So
amazing. So you first started making things that you can sell. That was then the idea. Okay. Mm-hmm. And the show you're talking about, the show you're talking about, is that like a exhibition or what?
Oh, it was a local how would you describe it? Like community art. I don't even know if it was an art show. It might have just been a summer festival.
Like a festival.
Where people, you know, so there were not a lot of potters down there. So it was unique because, you know, we were
more like a farmer's market than a show.
A bunch of people with 10 by 10 pop-up tents selling lawn art and, you know, homegrown produce and soap and things like that. And we set up our little tent and hung out our shingle and, you know, said, we're Dault Pottery. Here we go.
Amazing. And this style, because you have quite a specific style of doing, and you're carving these little leaves and patterns and things. So did you start with that as well?
Oh, wait, no.
We really didn't have a vision as artists when we began. It was just trying to make anything. But even from the beginning, I would sit and want to meticulously carve every single piece. And I was, you know, trying to decorate it. And David was always like, no, just more pieces. We don't, you know, don't spend so much time on each piece, just make more pieces. And even back then we kind of had this difference of what we were trying to accomplish. But I think the leaves started happening only 2 years ago. Maybe 2 years ago.
She's always been a doodler. She always doodles.
Yeah.
And then I realized after kind of like, you know, oh, stop taking so long. You're putting so much into each piece. I realized, you know, her love of doodling and her ability to create just beautiful things. Yeah, if she could just not doodle on paper that just gets thrown away, but take that like just, you know, that ability to create beautiful things and put it on pottery. You're putting it into stone. You know, we use stoneware clay, so she's putting it into stone, something that other people can enjoy and will last a lot longer than a slip of paper that she's doodling on.
I'm also a doodler. I also doodle. You know, every time when I'm just, I don't know, sometimes on the phone as well. So I understand the doodling part. You want to have
always.
Yeah.
So now she gets to, I mean, that is like, that feeds into her art now. But it's funny looking back from the earliest times. I mean, when you start throwing on a pottery wheel, you're just happy when you get an out of balance ashtray the first time. I mean, like I love when students would come over. We love to share pottery with people, and students would come over. I want to throw something this big, and I'd say, "Oh, that's cute, that's great." Again, like someone learning the violin and saying, "Well, can I start with a Paganini solo, please? I'd like to, do that." It's like, "Oh, that's cute." Well, we were thinking little Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, but yeah, you try it. Go ahead and try it. So when you first start throwing, I mean, it takes you usually weeks or months just to learn how to center the clay, which is a necessary step before you even start pulling it up. And you're just excited when you have an out of balance ashtray. Once you start to end up with, like, we threw a mug, it might be a chunky mug, it might be real thin at the top, real thick at the bottom. But once you start to like actually be able to create forms that are in your head, it's exciting. But then very quickly, Lisa's carving on them, doodling on them. And if you look back at our earliest work, she didn't have the leaf design, the vine design that she does now, but its early origins were right there at the beginning. Because she always loved to decorate the clay and doodle on the clay.
So. And that's also important that you have these pieces, that you can see how it evolved.
I would say there's a lot of pressure for artists. I don't know if it's just the pottery world, but I imagine it's all artists to have a voice, to have their style. And I feel like, that's necessary, because if you don't, then you are essentially just copying things you've seen, which is fine. It's part of the process, but that's not your voice, or that's not what you're going to sell or who you're going to become. It's just a step. And I feel like the only way to get there is time. We are in such a quick culture, everything's so fast that you want to have that end product when you begin. And sometimes the only solution is years or hours of practice, whatever time you have to devote to it. So it feels like a quick journey to get from, 9 years ago with the treadmill pottery wheel to today, but a lot has happened, to lead up to become who we are now and who we are becoming, because
and like Dave said, people come and they look at what you're doing now and they expect to have the same result if they do it.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's fun, and it's both fun and embarrassing to see early work.
Okay.
And I'm sure every artist is like this. I don't know if Da Vinci was, saw one of his early works and was embarrassed by it or what. We just see his classics. But when we go over to a friend's house and they pull out the mug, like, hey, look what we still have, and like, it's something that
it's like, oh, break it, please.
It's like, oh no, like it's this out of shape, wonky mug that the glaze just looks awful, and it just, But also it's wonderful to see that and see how different it is to celebrate, how far you've come. So
exactly, and that was part of the whole path that you had to take to get there. But did you have to? I mean, you said that you didn't have much training, but in the time, was this really just practicing, learning by doing? Was it that type of thing that you did?
Very much so. Very much so. I'd say he's had more technical training in high school than I ever have with the pottery. But the School of Hard Knocks or whatever, we've taught ourselves just through experience and trial and error. And then recently, the last couple of years, there's a studio supply store that we go to here close to where we live, and they do workshops. And so I've been able to go to a couple workshops, but even then it's mostly, surface decoration workshops or things like that. But it's been mostly just trial and error.
And you find you find little nuggets here and there, once potters started posting videos on YouTube or techniques or things like that. Just you're talking pottery with someone and something to try. So it's self-taught, but you're always looking for those nuggets that you can assimilate into how you do things or improve a process or that sort of thing. but
I
yeah,
always
most of
love
it's self.
I always love it when people say, you know, I've done by learning by doing, because I think there is definitely a merit in that, you know, because you find the solutions yourself, or you experiment yourself, and you don't rely so much on somebody else telling you what to do. And I think that also in anything, in any art form, brings along with it something then unique, you know, because you figured it out, you tried to make it, and this is not that I say it's not good to do training or courses or studying, but I do think there's really a misconception that you have to go and train yourself to do everything, but that in art that you can rely also on the fact that you do it, you know, that you spend the hours doing it.
Yeah. I think like what you said, the desire to have the education, I feel like, brings legitimacy to your art.
Yeah.
Because you've done what it takes to be educated in it. And I think that's completely valid. But and it might skip some hardships that you do if you don't have the training, like you're reinventing the wheel. Somebody has already figured out how to do this one thing you want to accomplish, but you'll never learn it unless you do it. And for me, I think pottery is such a physical art form. I can hear somebody talk about it all day long, but until I get my hands in it, I can't even see it. And you know, some people sketch things and then they make them. I have to make them, and basically it has to be the 3D sketch. I don't see it as well if I'm just doing it on paper or whatever. You have to kind of feel what actually is happening with the clay when you're trying to get a certain thing. And so it is an education. It's just a different kind of education.
Yeah. But when you are on the wheel and your hands are on the clay, do you then know what the end results will be, or do you sometimes just leave it a little bit so that it develops into something?
I think it's a little bit of both, and which some of it almost feels like it's left up to like some of the things I love most in what I do were accidents. They weren't, it wasn't that I had this brilliant idea and all of a sudden I was so inspired and made this beautiful piece. It was like, oh, I really like what the clay is, or the glaze is doing when the clay has this break on it.
Yeah.
I wonder what would happen if I kept pursuing that. Like the carved vine, you know, I had tried to do raised designs. I had tried to do, you know, flush designs, painted designs. And it wasn't until I carved, and I went through many, many different tools before I found the tool that gave me the leaf I wanted. So there were many iterations. It was like a reflections of this idea. And through time and practice and failure, I finally got to the thing I had always been trying to get to, which also I believe like there's still more room to grow. Like I'm not there. We're still developing, you know, our voice and who we are and our style and our design. But yeah, it's been a process of, I don't think I come to the clay thinking, you know, oh, I'm the master and I will produce exactly what I want. There's a little bit more not chance, but I don't know. Flexibility in the process.
Yeah, I spoke to a wood carver, and he said that it's sort of, he moves on from things also. Like he does some things or carve things, but then he moves on. Is this the same with you? Do you also sometimes feel, I want to move on from this design that I'm doing?
There are certain things that I thought I would never stop doing that I haven't picked up again. And I wonder sometimes if it's because I wasn't technically there in order to execute what I wanted to execute. So I wasn't as happy with it as I could. So that's a crossroad. It's like either I keep pursuing it to get where I want to be. I have to get technically better in order to produce the piece I want, or am I just not really into that design anymore? And so there are things like I really like altering the shape of bowls or mugs and things like that, and giving it more like petals and leaves feeling. But I was just never able to get the fluidity that I wanted in the piece. And so I swing back to what I'm comfortable with the vine, on the outside, instead of trying to transform the shape of the mug. Yeah. So yes, I would say yes.
And Dave, do you sometimes have ideas as well that you want her to make to try?
Oh yeah, or that I'll make, and I think our real question now is style.
Yes.
Yeah.
It would be wonderful, especially for doing commissioned work or volumes of things. If someone wants to order something, it'd be wonderful if we were interchangeable and we would just both throw the same things. Is all my stuff going to be the same style as hers? Because we're pretty funny. We're like an old couple. I'm like, oh, your rims are too thin. That just seems vulnerable.
Like, oh, your mug is so heavy.
She's like, oh, your mug's too chunky.
Heavy.
I'm like, oh, no, it's sturdy mug.
Like, it's my hand. It's breaking.
So we'll see where we end up. But I just need to get on the wheel a lot more and just develop the chops. Yeah. Just basically, it's like practice scales. I have to practice scales and get caught up. And then when I can, maybe if we can make pieces interchangeably, the question is going to be, but do we want to? Will I have my line of pottery that's a totally different style and voice, or will we have Dault pottery and it's all homogenous across? And we've seen couples she sees couples. I don't get out much on Instagram and media stuff, but there's couples who do it either way.
Yeah.
No right or wrong choice, but we'll see. If she keeps making her rims too thin, then we'll probably have different styles, because I need a nice beefy rim that'll take some abuse.
Well, I can just imagine what therapy must be like when you.
Yeah. Well, we started. With this transition coming, we were like, okay, this is going to be. Most spouses like working outside of the home because you get away from each other for a little while.
Yeah. We're
going into the high stakes realm of working together in a 2-car garage space while we homeschool 5 children. Like, this could be tough. We started like marriage counseling, not because we were in crisis, because we've always talked about it and heard wonderful things about couples who've done it. We're like, let's do preemptive marriage counseling, because we're about to enter a new high stakes game here. And so
go ahead.
No, I just think keep all the ones that are not so perfect on a shelf. And when you come to that point where you are frustrated with each other, you start throwing pottery around.
That's a great idea.
Brilliant.
That's the best therapy I can think of.
Cathartic.
That's the cathartic shelf right there. Anything. Yeah.
Call it your therapist.
Yeah.
We'd save some money there.
Yeah. Thank you.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
Well, it's Oh, go ahead. It's just David's style is so different from mine. And I would say he's actually more of the potterly or artistic of the two of us, but I show up.
Oh, okay.
Well, and she's meticulous, which almost to me, I'm like, dear, too perfect, because she'll make mugs. And we've had people come into our pottery booth at shows, and it was so funny. This, people came in and one of them's like, so you can tell these are molded because, you can see that there's no, yada, yada, yada. And talking to their friend about how you could tell that the pieces came out of a mold because they were so perfect, because the way she attaches handles and the throwing and cleaning it up and everything like that. I was like, oh, no, actually, no, they're not molded. It's real thrown, hand applied handles, hand carved. Sometimes I'm like, dear, you got to be a little more sloppy. So people know that it's handmade pottery. They're going to think this is, I don't know.
Which is hilarious because I see my pieces and I see all the imperfections. I do not think I make perfect pottery at all. Like, I see it and I'm like, oh, the glaze didn't do exactly what I wanted it, which might lend itself towards perfectionism. But it's funny how you view your own piece. You know, you always view it with what you thought it was going to be. Other people who view it have no idea what you thought it was going to be. They only see what it is. And so, I mean, I bring a little bit of baggage to my own pieces because of that. But David loves sculpture. He likes doing things like, if he has time, when he has time, like not landscapes, cityscapes, wall hangings.
I have all these things in my head, and I just haven't, had the time or made the space to execute on them. So I'm interested also in getting into sculptural things.
Less functional, more sculptural, which is great. We don't have to be making the same things for the business to be moving forward, but it will be interesting to see how they meld.
But David, I'm also with you. I like a little bit of imperfection. I like that. I think this is, but I also appreciate well, I'm not as perfectionistic with things that I make. But I can appreciate that somebody really, wants that fine detail to be perfect. And this is also great. But on this topic now, where you say people came to look and say it's from a mold and so, what do you think people really appreciate the work? And it's not just the work for that specific piece, but the work before. These years of working is also part of this piece, because this is where you ended up, and this is the piece that is sort of the result of all your work. And do you think people have this appreciation for pottery, that they are willing to pay more for a mug that is handmade?
I think the people who are willing to pay our prices now are very much invested in what it took to be, to make this piece. Because we consider pottery, like, we use pottery, all of our children use pottery. We can't imagine not using pottery. But the only reason we get to do that is because we have all of our second pieces that we weren't going to sell.
It cracks on the bottom. It's still functional, but it goes in our cupboard.
We couldn't afford to have as much pottery as we have if we weren't making it and failing, and experimenting. So we see the beauty in it. We see how it enhances and elevates, what you drink and how you eat and the presentation of your food and everything. But to be honest, we couldn't afford to live this way. We couldn't go buy this. So we really appreciate anybody who is willing to pay the price it took. But when somebody asks, and they look at a piece and they're like, how long did it take to make this mug? My kind of annoying answer is, it took my whole life. It took my whole life to get to this piece.
Exactly.
If you're asking for seconds, maybe 5 minutes of, multiple steps, but it took a whole journey to get here, to produce this one piece.
Exactly. That's what I think also. I think this, and this is why I do these interviews, for people to understand that, you don't just pick up a violin and play, or you don't just, throw something on a wheel and that you create these pieces. Right. So it has its path, and it has its hours and hours of dedication that you need. But you said that you homeschooled. I also homeschooled my children, so I know what it entails. But how wonderful! Do you involve them also? Do you let them also work with the clay?
Yes.
Some of them we can't keep out of the studio.
Yes. Really?
They love to get in there and get their hands dirty. We're not doing a small business to be like, okay, this is Dault Pottery, and kids, someday you're going to take this over, and we expect you. A lot of why we're doing small business is to show them you can kind of jump out into the unknown, and life is an adventure, and mommy and daddy lived an adventure here, and you got to see that firsthand, for better or for worse. You can find your own adventure, and if it's art or pottery even specifically, that's great. But they will be involved one way or another, and they just love to get their hands in the clay and make it. And they also see us as artists supporting ourselves, so they come out and they make some little pinch pot thing, and then they're like, okay, mommy, daddy, put this in your next show.
Really?
They got the entrepreneurial spirit already, because that's what's talked about at the dinner table. So
our girls last year, we do a farmer's market, and they had a kids market, and our girls made mushroom ornaments and no, pick one. Little mushrooms to put
is that
in
beautiful?
planters. So this is made by our now 12 and 11 or 13 and 11-year-old, but and then our 8-year-old makes little tumblers, and she wants to sell tumblers, and she paints. She likes to paint watercolor, and so she's always like, I'll paint postcards, and you can sell the postcards. And then our 4-year-old, our 4-year-old is always out here. She's my shadow in the studio.
Really?
And then the 2-year-old just makes a mess. She just always making a mess. Yeah.
I can see her getting involved, but yeah, she's just in that messy stage, whether it's pottery or mud outside or whatever.
Yeah. And of course she sees everybody's busy with the clay, so she will probably also, or she will just surprise you and do something completely different.
We need her to be a doctor to support us all in our art.
You always need that one that's a bit different.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But but this is so amazing. Such an amazing story. Where are you based, where you can do all these wonderful things?
Where we live in Dayton, Ohio, which is southwest Ohio, kind of near the corner. This is one of our mugs, but if this is the state of Ohio, we're down in the corner there. We make these mugs with the state silhouette.
That's clever.
And we found a house that we love now. Our realtor was I don't know how she dealt with us. When we were trying to find a house, we were going to move to Ohio. We were going to take next steps in pottery because I'd been teaching and coaching, and she'd been doing pottery in the evenings and weekends. And she started to out earn me doing pottery in the evenings and weekends. It's not hard when you're teaching and coaching at like a private school. Like that's not hard to beat. But we were like, man, we both want to do this together. And so we moved up to Ohio. I got kind of sucked into her dad's business, dental office. And that's what I've been doing for the last 6 years, managing his dental office. But we were trying to find a place to do pottery. So we told our realtor, we want a place to do pottery, 1 or more bedrooms. A bathroom would be nice. And
we really just need a studio.
Yeah, that's about it. You have 4 at that point, 4 children. Like how many bedrooms am I looking for?
We'll make it work.
What do you mean you want a place to do a studio? Well, it could be a garage, it could be a shed, it could be an outbuilding, it could be a basement. Yeah, it could be anything, so
amazing.
But we found this wonderful little house, tiny house. But this house that needed a lot of work. So I bit off a big mouthful, but it had this detached garage with an apartment above it. And so it's just the perfect place for us to have an at-home small business. The garage was nasty. Like I was just shoveling dirt out of the back of the garage. It's built into a hill, years of rain and just mud and everything building up. Pressure washed the whole thing, painted the whole thing, remodeled it 2 or 3 times now in the last 2 years to be better situated. So there's storage on the walls, and space is maximized. But it's a 2-car garage with an apartment above that could be office space eventually.
Or a little shop.
Or a little shop or something. Yeah, it's not a kind of place where we never have a retail store, because of zoning laws and our driveways treacherous and things like that.
Well, and because our children's safety is also, we don't want to bring people we know will have over, but it's not like we would want to run classes out of our studio or anything like that, because it's still home. And I think that's a really big element for us. So if I had to go somewhere to do pottery, if I had to go to a studio, I wouldn't do pottery because I couldn't afford a babysitter to watch 5 kids. So I could go spend the time I'd need to. The reason I've been able to we've been able to get to the point we are is because it's in our home. So that's
in our home, but it's really nice even to have a
walk,
the 30-foot walk across the driveway, and the separation, one for Claire dust and glazed dust, and there's some definite safety and occupational hazards with dust and things like that. But also just to have it even physically slightly removed, but on premises is the best of all worlds.
I can imagine, and for your children also to have you there and to and for you to have the time with them, because it's so precious, the time with them. Mm-hmm. But how do you sell your pottery now? Do you just on shows, or do you have an online shop? How can people buy your pottery?
So we're still figuring that out right now. Okay. We do a lot of online sales. So we've built, we were on Etsy for a long time. A lot of makers know that. We built our own Shopify website. That was the big task last year. So we had our own e-commerce platform. Typically we were doing monthly shop updates where we would make, and kind of focus on the making process, take pictures, write descriptions, post it all in a shop update, and do it that way. Now we're putting things on weekly because we're doing a farmer's market for the whole summer. So we typically look for, and this will probably evolve now that we're living off of pottery, but we typically have looked for local shows, as local as we can stay, and shorter shows, so that we're not gone for a week, at a time and traveling across the country, because we're doing pottery because it can be a family-friendly small business. And if it ever wasn't family friendly, we would say, okay, we might still do pottery as a hobby and as a passion, but we got to find something else. Because the reason I'm leaving a stable, steady office job that's even flexible, that I could kind of make my own hours at, and, all that, is because we both want to be involved in the homeschooling, and because we both want to be involved in the pottery, and we want to show our kids what's possible in life.
That's amazing.
So we've always looked for local shows and kind of smaller shows. So we do a farmer's market that's 4 hours every Saturday, in a, it's 20 minutes away in the Dayton area, and it's wonderful, and it's met our needs so far. And then we do online sales, and then we do some other random art shows and things like that.
Or custom. We do a lot of custom work.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah. So people
I would consider that more like what I would like to be the bread and butter, and then everything else is extra. Unless suddenly take off online and people buy our stuff immediately when we post it, but that hasn't happened yet. But yeah, we do custom orders, like with business logos, or their custom stamps and things like that.
And you were asking, is there a market, or do people have the appreciation? And right now, yes. If things drastically change in the economy and all budgets are slashed and tightened, maybe it would change. But there is such a desire to have something that's handmade, something that there is some craft, and a person has put their skill into this piece. And whether it's, a business buying gifts for their team members, their employees, or client gifts where, I could get something from the mall that, is crystal and has a name engraved in it, and stuff. And it's not that that's bad, but just something that's a little bit different and maybe more unique. Maybe it's locally made, and that's important to them. And so, we love working with local companies and things like that. But there's absolutely a desire for something like that.
Or what I would say, something with a story.
Exactly.
We had a lady, we'd like to do plate sets, but we only take on a couple a year because they're such a big project. But one lady came over and she got to watch the process, and she got to watch me throw the entire plate process, or, the plate set. And I was talking to her the other day, and she's like, I love your plates, but I love the story. I love getting to tell people, the process and how I was there and what happened with each piece. And it's more than just stuff. I mean, it is stuff. It is just a physical thing. But when you have a story with it, it becomes something else. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what people are starting to really look for and appreciate, is the fact that it's not just another thing in this world.
Yeah, I think this is so important. And I think this has, I think this is being, there's a change that people are wanting this now, that they are looking for I just don't want any old thing. I want something that's also sentimental, that has that sentiment. But now, what are the wish for you for the future now on this first day of the new adventure? What is the wish?
What is the wish?
Survival would be great.
food on the table.
table.
That's a good start. No, and we're excited. I mean, it seems like every conversation we've had, leading up to this, and even this morning and everything, is this existential crisis of like, who are we and who are we going to be, like now and in 5 years and in 10 years, and like really trying to figure that out. And that's not something you can rush necessarily, and that's something that develops just like the style has over the years.
I would say that we want to live intentionally. We're every parent's worst nightmare. We're making art in the garage. We're what every parent hopes your child doesn't become.
Mom, Dad, I want to make pottery in my garage
with 5 children and a mortgage. No parent wants to hear that. But what we want for our lives and for our children, we want to be intentional, and we want to live a life. This is a big thing for us that isn't hurried. Pottery is a slow art form, and you can rush it and you can have a high fail rate. And we watch our world go by, and everyone's tired and everyone's stressed and overwhelmed. And here we are, and we're like, there has to be a better way. There has to be a better way to live life that isn't so driven. And it's not that we're not driven. We're passionate, driven people, but we don't want to live our life that every time somebody says, how are you doing? Oh, I'm so good, but I'm so busy. Life is just busy.
So overwhelmed. Yeah.
If I could give a gift to my girls, it would be, you're not living on this, frantic, fast-paced life. Take a moment and be present in this moment. Pottery is an art that forces you to be in that moment. It's literally an art form. So I think what our future goal is, obviously, enough money to support our family would be wonderful. If we could support ourselves through pottery alone, which is where we're going to give it a year and see what happens, that would be a dream come true. And I think we could do it. But more than that, could we live a life that demonstrates something different, that there's a different way to live? I think that's our ultimate goal.
That's such a beautiful goal to have, really. And this thing that you mentioned about the speed and also if you look at the process is the part where you learn a lot. It's not that end result. The end result when you put that pot on the shelf is not where the satisfaction is. It's this whole process. And I can definitely, I draw lines with all the people I speak to. It's exactly the same thing when you talk to a conductor, or when you talk to a pilot, or when you talk to a violinist, or even a chef. These are the things. It's this whole process. It's the patience. It's the endurance. It's you need this motivation to carry on. And this, if you think you can teach this, or your children can see this from you, that is so amazing. What more do we want for them in life?
Right.
But so this is so great to talk to you. It's so inspirational, and I'm just thinking, you have to put that shelf up so that you can start throwing the stuff when you get angry.
We're going to need it.
That's a good idea. Yeah. Yep.
And I'm sure you're going to make it, because you sound, by talking to you, I can see there's a great chemistry and there's a great support for each other. So I'm sure it will be a part of your success story.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate that. And we look forward to it, knowing I'm always the one, I know we're going to have hard times, but we'll persevere.
Yeah.
I got in trouble early in our marriage, like on our honeymoon, with that attitude, like, hey, this is wonderful. It's not all going to be this wonderful, but this is wonderful.
And I'm just
like, what? What are you expecting, the worst now?
This is the best moment of my life, and you're bringing us down.
I'm good at bulldozing the mountaintops to try to fill in the valleys, I guess.
Listen, you sound like my children. I'm the one living on the cloud, and then they are the ones telling me to come down. They say, "Oh, come on, mommy, I have to be more realistic." And hey, I love it up here on my cloud. I say to them, come and join me. I'm not coming down. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So we're a good balance for each other. Yes. So I think we're well suited, being different in many ways. So yes.
Yeah. Oh, but this is amazing. But listen, Dave and Lisa, whenever you come to Vienna, please let me know. I would love to meet you in person and your 5 girls. And otherwise, cool. I don't know if I'll ever come to America. I haven't been, but there's still time. I can come one day, but I would love
if you come to Ohio.
Yes,
there's a place for you.
I would love to come and see your work and definitely own one of your pieces, because I think it's so beautiful. And I can really, on the videos, I'm always so happy for Instagram that give us this opportunity to be able to see this, because otherwise, how would we know of you and your beautiful work? So, no, definitely, this is amazing. So I'll keep on following you.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Have a lovely afternoon.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.